Hey guys, and welcome back to the Blue Podcast Network. This is the Blue Podcast. Today I'm hosted with Liam, and as you can see, we only have two hosts today because we are with Josh Padley, 5-on-1 professional boxer.
15, not
15 and 1.
five.
Oh my God, I've screwed up at the start.
Bit more than 5.
15 and 1 professional boxer, just signed by Eddie Hearn as well. Welcome, mate. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem, lads. Good to be on.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think what I want to do with this podcast is start at the beginning of your story. What age did you start kind of realizing that you wanted to be a professional boxer?
It wasn't until about, I bet it was about 20-year-old that I actually thought about being an actual professional. It was always just a hobby. I liked, as brutal as it sounds, I liked going and having a fight. Obviously in the amateur days, and like I say, I'd always thought to begin with I'd started too late. I think I had my first amateur at 15, for like back end 14, 15 years old. And I always thought, oh, these lads have been doing it since the 9-year-old. And I always thought I would be too late to turn professional. I just did it because I liked to do it and kept me busy. And then, like I say, as we progressed through the amateur program and sort of started winning titles and getting through we won the under 20 nationals and stuff. My coach was like, well, if you actually put your head down here, you might be able to do something. And then the year after, we got to quarters of the elites and stuff like that. So that's when it sort of became apparent that there is a potential here that if we stick to it and you dedicate yourself to it, you might be able to pull something out of it. So yeah.
Fair enough. What age did you actually start boxing? Because obviously, I know you said you didn't really think it was a possibility till you were 20, and your first amateur fight was at 15.
Yeah, I think I started when I was 14, and then had
quite late.
14, and then I had my first amateur late that year, or early 15. I can't really remember now. Yeah.
Do you think starting late out of like your own choice benefited you? Because you know a lot of these lads and these girls get pushed into by their parents who train them from young. So do you think having the choice at a older age has actually helped you because you know your heart's fully into this?
I think so, yeah. Like I say, there were never neither of my parents pushed me to go to the gym. How I started at the gym, there was a couple of lads in the school a few years older than me that had already been at the gym. And we were out, as you do as a 14-year-old, just messing about on fields and stuff with big groups. And they pulled up on the mopeds with some old gloves in the boots of the mopeds, and they were like, here lads, put these on and get to it between yous. So me and my friends were obviously just didn't have a clue back then, sparring each other on this random field in our village. And he sort of said, you've got something, you come down to the gym. And like I say, a couple of weeks after that, I've been, and I haven't looked back since.
Fair enough. And if you kind of could have told yourself, your 15-year-old self, when you had your first amateur fight, that, you know, a few years down the line, you'd be fighting for titles and signed by Eddie Hearn, would you have bitten your hand off?
Like I say, even when I first had my first amateur fight, it weren't ever, oh, I could have a career out of this.
Yeah.
It were never even apparent to me, right up until I think I got, like I say, to the quarters of the elites, and then it were like, we might be able to do something here. I think I boxed a kid who had 110 fights and I'd had 24, and I lost on a split decision. Wow. He was the GB number 1 seed at the time. So we're like, he should have absolutely pasted me, but he obviously didn't. So, and then ever since that, then I really got my head down and strived towards professional rankings, yeah.
So you turn professional, you're building yourself. You get to 14-0 and you get the call from Mark Chamberlain at Wembley. What are you thinking? Like, you're on the Anthony Joshua undercard. What's the emotions thinking when you get that call?
Well, that all them 14 fights had been building up to that opportunity there, and obviously that moment I'd been craving exposure for them first 14 fights, fighting on all small hall show like leisure centres and like banquet suites and stuff like that, and I'd not had a major promoter or anything, so I was craving that exposure. I knew I was good enough. I was just in the shadows almost. So obviously when that fight got called up, Anthony Joshua undercard at Wembley, well, like, how can we not take this opportunity? It's everything that I've wanted. Let's give it a go. And like I say, it were a good 10 weeks out. So it was like a full camp and everything that we got, so which is unheard of. As obviously some of these, when you get these opportunities, sometimes it is short notice. But like I say, that one that I had a full camp at that, and we grabbed that opportunity with both hands.
What was it like, kind of, as you said, going from those smaller venues to Wembley and those big arenas? How does that feel stepping out into front of that crowd? Because it must be a completely different, almost animal.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, when you go into the venues prior and you have a look round, it's like, I'm going to be boxing in here. It's massively different. Because I like to say, when we did the Wembley card, the press conference room were bigger than any of the venues that I'd ever boxed in. And like I say, and then Wembley, well, biggest stadium the UK's got. So it was quite the, like I say, jump from the one end of the spectrum to the other. But I sort of just zone in, don't let it eat you up. There's a job to be done there. Like I say, no matter what's going on around you, it's just you and your opponent in that ring, and that's the mindset that I have. And I say, don't let the occasion get to me.
Is there do you have a pre-fight process that you go through? Because I mean, I've seen some fighters who, you know, got to your level and then they get in front of that huge crowd and they just kind of almost go into themselves. How do you stop yourself from doing that?
Yeah, everybody's different and everybody deals with it different. I like to not even think about the fight until I'm literally starting to put the gloves on and we're ready to go. Because I think sometimes you can, well, I know myself from amateurs, if I think about it too much, I get myself all rattled up and adrenaline's pumping. And then 10 minutes later, once your adrenaline's pumping, you're like, oh God, I feel crap now. But like I say, that's where the experience from amateurs comes in. You know how your body, everybody's different. And I know I'll just completely switch off. And then, like I say, when it's time to glove up, then it's time to get real.
What was the original plan after the Mark Chamberlain fight? Because obviously you had a very drastic change of your life, really. But what was the original plan after that to build yourself from that? To be fair, it was an underdog win. So people knew you then. So what was the original plan to make sure you're like the name you wanted to be?
We were hoping that after the Chamberlain win, we'd get signed to a major promoter and then sort of would just be away then fighting on these big cards. But that didn't really materialise. We had a few offers that weren't really worth it against good opposition. But obviously, I had a bit of a position in my rankings, etc. Then, which I wanted to obviously use to my advantage and get the best thing for my career. So it went really stale, to be honest. Like I say, I think we had 2 offers all the way up to that last week where we had a few offers come in, but you'd think after a win like Chamberlain on a big card, you would have got signed, but that wasn't the case.
So then how do you get to being signed by Eddie Hearn from that?
Like I said, the performance obviously against Shakur, I think people could see what I could do with a full camp against Chamberlain. Yeah. And then obviously on the flip side of it, people obviously could see that even against a pound for pound fighter, that obviously there were determination there. So obviously if you can combine the two, obviously see what I can do with a full camp, and then you can see that obviously my heart's in it no matter what. Combine them two. If you give me a full camp and give me a chance, then I'm going to be a really good fighter.
How would you even like game plan? Because obviously you had less than a week. How do you and your team come together and like, okay, we've got to fight probably the best in the division here?
We had an hour preparation for Stevenson.
That's crazy.
By the time, we had 4 days. It come on the Tuesday night. The deal didn't sort of get over the line till 25 past 10 at night, which then I went to the gym and got on treadmill to get ready for my check weight the next day. I also had to go and get my eye test done. Well, I had to get something signed off for my eye test that morning, and then had to make weight for the check weight. Then obviously travel to Saudi, and then catch up on a little bit of sleep. We had an hour in the gym, which were obviously the clips that you see on the Matchroom where I'm posting it and sort of stuff like that. So that were our preparation for Shakur on the Matchroom clips that they posted. So it was, like I say, it were not the best of preparations, but we had to make do with what we had at the time.
Fair. And obviously you hard-fought battle against Shakur. Obviously, unfortunately, didn't go your way, but you showed, obviously, said a lot of heart. How do you then? How are you going to bounce back from obviously your first loss professionally? How are you looking to bounce back and prove to everyone that was just because you didn't have the same preppers as him, and was going to be you're still going to be a fantastic fighter going forwards?
Yeah, we're obviously signed with Matchroom now, so they're going to take my career in their hands. We've signed a multi-fight deal with them. Come down a few levels now, obviously from the world-class operators. Get back to winning ways, and then sort of go from there. There's been talks about going down to super featherweight.
Okay.
Made lightweight in a week, but I'm in 4 days' notice. So you prove that I'm not the biggest of lightweights. I've just been able to. Luckily enough, I'm strong enough to keep with them. So there is talks about going down to super feather. The next one will be at lightweight, but after that, we're thinking about going down to super feather and then just building back up, chasing them titles down.
What's it like working with Turkey? Because obviously he's kind of like the operator of boxing at the moment. So having an opportunity to work with him, and as he said Mark Chamberlain was his favorite fighter, then you came around to beat him. So what's it like being under the Turkey banner? And do you prefer the glitz and glamour fighting in Riyadh, or do you like the home crowd of the English fights you have?
Oh, I mean, obviously the Riyadh season events are like nothing you've ever seen. Like the full weeks, it's an event. It is actually an event. All the stars are there. You get all the best treatment and stuff. Like I say, I've been involved in 2 Riyadh season cards now. But like I say, if you are on a Riyadh season card, it's the best fighting the best. So like I say, get a win back under my belt and probably another one at my new weight division, and then I'd like to be back on them Riyadh season cards because the biggest shows, biggest events, and they're what everybody's talking about. But no, it was all good. I even had a phone call off Turkey this time. Himself rang me when we were out in Saudi, saying thanks for stepping in and obviously do your best sort of thing. So that was nice. Nice.
And kind of in this modern world as well with fighting, social media is such a big thing. How is that a distraction to you, or do you thrive off of that? Or I wanted to know what you think of kind of how social media has almost changed the landscape of boxing recently.
Yeah, to be honest, I've always been pretty crap with my social media side of things because I've always worked full time. Yeah. So by time I've obviously gone and done a day's work and then gone to the gym. Putting a selfie on my social media is low down on my priority list. I want to, get some food in me, get a shower and rest up. But now that obviously I'm a full-time athlete, I know that social media is a massive, like you say there, a massive side of it. There's people that get fights just purely off the back of the social media, which fair play to them. They know how to market themselves. So it's like I say, it's massive in the game now. It's if you're good at that thing, then hats off to you.
Do you almost think this is kind of like a rebirth of you having a full-time career in boxing now instead of having to make the money, obviously working, then going to the gym? Do you think we're going to see a new and improved Josh Padley that's only focused on this boxing?
Definitely. The Mark Chamberlain fight, I took 8 full weeks off work. So you can sort of see the level that I can achieve being a full-time athlete. And that obviously fight was at 140 pounds. The next one's going to be 135 and then even potentially 130 after that. So I'm going to be a real force to reckon with, especially down at my proper weight.
How did it feel taking that decision to, go full-time boxing, having obviously, as we said, come into it quite late? It must be quite a surreal experience to go, you know what, this is my full-time job.
Yeah, it was a nice phone call to make to the boss on Monday morning. I got back from Saudi. I think he knew it would come in, but no, it's what I've worked for since turning pro. This is obviously what I've wanted and what I've worked towards. So it's nice that you can put a lot of time and energy into something and it actually come off. I'm now a retired electrician and a full-time boxer, which is like I say, which is all I've wanted. So I'm excited to see what I can do going forward, having these full camps at my proper weight.
As a fighter, being in the moment, how would you rate the skills and pick the brain of Secure Stevenson? Because obviously people are criticizing his style a little bit, but he's getting the win. So as someone that's been in the ring with him and obviously you studied him extensively, do you think the criticism's valid, or do you just think it's boxing and it's about getting the win and building?
I wouldn't say I've studied him extensively because
so you only had a week.
Yeah, I've always thought it was sort of a bit out of my reach. You don't really think that being on the small hall shows that you're ever going to get an opportunity to step up against the world-class operator pound for pound like Shakur. So If you call in an hour extensive studying, then yeah,
Sure.
I've had some extensive studying of him. But no, what surprised me the most being in there with someone like Shakur is that his punch accuracy and his timing and stuff were just a second to none. How he'd obviously he'd sort of slow the fight down and then accelerate back through, and it was quite impressive. Like I say, even if given a full camp, I don't think I'd have been quite at that level yet to get the victory. I do think I'd have seen 12 rounds, and I do think I'd have seen him more competitive with my timing, etc. But no, like I say, that he's the best that I've been in the ring with so far. And like I say, if you look at his punch accuracy numbers and stuff like that, I think he's one of the most accurate boxers currently at the minute. So, them body shots took its toll.
Fair enough. And I want to ask you, obviously, barring the prep time, is there anything you kind of think you'd do differently if you had that full prep time in that fight?
I mean, like the last southpaw that I sparred were about 5 weeks ago. So obviously that's going to make a massive difference as well. Getting your time in and your punch accuracy. He's just come off a 10-week camp. So and like I say, he's a world-class operator. So given everything considered, I'm proud of what I've done. And like I say, I think I've made a good account for myself, and which has obviously helped me probably get my deal now. But I do think it would have been more competitive given if I'd had a full camp, yeah.
And what have you taken out the fight? Because obviously you would have spoken to Shakur after. Is there anything he told you or anything that you've picked up in that fight about yourself or you might not have known about yourself that you're going to take into these next fights?
I mean, obviously, I know now that I've never been down in all my amateur and pro career. I've never been on the canvas, so at least I know now that I've got it in me that I want to keep fighting, which I knew anyway. But like I say, I've proved that to people now that even if I'm down and I'm not quitting, I'll keep coming. So I'll be able to take that in my career now, saying I've had a loss, and if things get a bit rough, I'll be able to carry on.
Nice, fair enough. I'm going to take it a little bit away from the traditional boxing. Liam and I actually were at the KSI and Dylan Dennis press conference yesterday. I wanted to know what you think of that side of boxing. Is it a bit showy, or do you think it's beneficial to the whole sport in itself?
I don't mind it too much. I know a lot of people have mixed reviews about it, but like I say, what I was saying earlier, them people that are obviously doing that have had the ability to promote themselves. So for sometimes I think boxers that are a bit sour about it, then promote yourself better. They're essentially in that position because they know how social media works. So you can't really knock them for that, in my opinion. They've grafted the social media side of it, and they're fighting each other. I think it's a bit. The only thing that I don't really like is when Jake Paul calls out Canelo. I think that's a bit.
It's a bit ridiculous,
Canelo's tried and tested, multiple weight world champion. And then obviously he goes and loses to Tommy Fury. So it's like you don't belong to be calling people like Canelo out. But I've got nothing against them guys. Obviously, all fighting each other. Why not? You know what I mean? It tells them tickets. It makes them money. It is what it is.
Back to yourself. So, how many degrees of separation, or how many fights do you think you are until you're back into that top world level mix? Because you had a good accounting of yourself. It's one of the rare instances where the late step in really goes for it, because most of the time they're there and they're going to use the fact they were a late step in as an excuse, but you properly went for it and you really wanted to win. That's obvious. So how many fights do you think you are until you're back at that level at a more comfortable weight class for yourself?
Like I say, I'd gone to do the unthinkable and get the win. I didn't go just to get the paycheck, what people say, and I think you can see that. I think I'd have stayed down at first body shot if I went to do that. I wanted to actually win, and because imagine the stories, if I'd have gone on 4 days notice and beat him, would have been history, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, like I say, I did go to get the win. I think get the, like I say, 3-fight deal now with Matchroom, which will be nice. Somebody being in my corner, building me up, picking the right fights, and not having to take these stupid and risky fights all the time, sort of thing. But I do think get these 3 fights out of the way with Matchroom building back up, getting my confidence back there and stuff, and then I want to be back at that top level. Yeah.
Amazing. And What is the goal for you, Josh? What is your dream situation going forwards?
A new weight class and get back onto them big Riyadh season cards, fighting for these world titles and major titles. That's what I want to do, and that's what I'm in a good position to do now. So it's about using this position that I've got and worked hard for, and proving that I belong here.
Nice.
So there's been a story about a Ring magazine card being at Alcatraz, and that sparks my imagination. If you could fight at any location on this earth, regardless of what it is, where would it be?
Probably Colosseum in Rome. I think that'd be probably the coolest thing to. I mean, I don't know how you do it because we went on holiday there a few years ago, and it is, like I say, it's a bit of a ruin now. But I think, as history goes, I think that would be the coolest place in the world to fight there.
And kind of on that train of dream, who would be your dream fighter at the moment? To after you've had your few fights back in, got a few more wins under your belt. Who do you want to kind of face next?
Whatever does the best for my career. I ain't got a specific person in mind, and I ain't got my sights set on anyone really. It's just a case of whatever progresses my career best and whatever titles I'm gonna be able to pick up on the way. Whatever the best move is for me. So just wait and see who presents himself.
What do you think the difference is going to be now you're settling yourself at a different weight class? You think it's going to be speed and power, or do you just think you might have just obviously you took this fight on a few days' notice with Shakur, but going back down, you think that's going to show you got the power and you've got the speed compared to these smaller guys?
Well, I've never actually been down at super featherweight yet. Like I say, this next fight's at lightweight because I've never done a full camp off work at lightweight because the Chamberlain fight got moved to 140. So I'm going to get this one out of the way, see how comfortable I feel. It might be a case that I do stay at lightweight, but like I say, the aim is probably going to be to go to super feather if I feel good. But I think the difference is when you get to that top level, these little bits and bobs that, like I say, that I've noticed that there are a lot bigger guys when you get to top level. And obviously I've probably not known that being at work as well. But just all these little percentages that people are adding on obviously makes a massive difference when you've got a 12-round fight.
And when someone sees your name on a card, what would you say is almost a reason for people to watch you? Like, what makes you stand out from these other boxers?
I mean, obviously the story behind it's now quite good. That's caused a bit of traction. But I feel like I'm never really in a boring fight. Obviously, I always go and strive to do my best in that ring. So I think, like I say, I'm quite a complete fighter, and like I say, the best is still yet to come.
With the best being yet to come, say when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy in boxing to be?
Get as many titles as I can, and like I say, I would love to be able to challenge for a world title again, given a bit more notice, etc. Because like I say, that's the pinnacle of the sport. When the opportunity come, it were like I might never ever get this chance again to box for a world title. There's not many people that do, so I couldn't turn it down at all. We weren't even in my mind. As soon as the nutritionist says that the weight can be done, it were like I'm going to box that's what every boxer's dream should be, to get to that world title shot. So I'd like to be able to challenge for a world title again and with a full camp and then see how I do.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a really nice spot to finish this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to seeing where everything goes. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Make sure you guys go check out Josh. We'll put his information down below. And obviously, we'll be watching Josh going forwards, and look forward to seeing you lift the title, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers. Thank you very much, guys.